Hello, my name is David Sabgir, and I'm with the incredible Dr. Michelle Segar. It is snowing here in mid-August in Ann Arbor. No, it's not mid-August. It's late March, and Michelle, do you want to kind of share what area we're in here?
Sure. We're on the west side of Ann Arbor, where the University of Michigan is. And we're just walking through a really pretty neighborhood that's really lovely to walk in. There's lots of trees and, it's just nice to be outside, even though it's spring and it's snowing today.
This is a great opportunity. I love the snow. So, Dr. Michelle Segar, if you haven't had the opportunity to hear of her work, she's incredible. She's sought after by every major media outlet. And today, we've got her. Thank you so much for being with us.
It's so fun to be here taking a walk.
We are here in Ann Arbor with Michelle because she has a fantastic new book coming out that I wanted everyone to know about. It's called The Joy Choice. And do you mind giving us a little bit on?
Sure.
We'll definitely get into it.
Sure. So The Joy Choice, with the subtitle of How to Finally Achieve Lasting Changes in Eating and Exercise, came out of a recognition that people needed help dealing with the challenges that they bump up against in their mundane daily lives when it comes to healthy eating and exercise. We may have learned to set goals and to form habits and other types of strategies to get us started in the right way. But the problem is, eventually, at some point, we bump up against something that derails our hoped-for plan. And to a great extent, when that happens, because we've been socialized and educated in society to have all or nothing thinking, if we can't do it all, we can't do our plan, then it all goes out the window. And so The Joy Choice was written to give people new skills and strategies and a mindset that can, what I call, slay the all or nothing dragon and enable people to make the perfect imperfect choice, or the joy choice, so they can do something instead of nothing.
So important. Nothing is more important in this world because we all face that every day, all day. So that is just awesome. I love that you let us into your life. You start the book by talking about how your husband Jeff is a habiter, and then there are also unhabiters. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Not at all. It was really a concept that came to me with the recognition that while some people are innately disciplined and live their lives in such an organized way that that very popular strategies like habit formation work for him. He across all areas of his life, he's very disciplined and has things organized in a certain way. But there are other people like me who are not so organized and who can't depend on a very fixed and rigid schedule, which is something that habit formation depends upon. Habits are very helpful for a lot of things. I have a flossing habit. I drink water when I wake up. I don't have to think about it. But when it comes to more complex behaviors, my experience, but more importantly, research suggests that for complex behaviors like exercising, habit formation may not be viable for most people.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that because it's so critically important. And I do want to say, what I love about your book is it feels like coffee with a friend. The way you write is so fun, enjoyable, comforting to read. So thank you. Another thing I love about the book is how you simplify things. I think, as you've alluded to, our lives get so chaotic. To me, simplicity is just key in moving forward. And you develop this acronym TRAP that addresses these disruptors in our life. And I am so excited to be here with you in person, to have you, if you don't mind, going through them, starting with temptation and rebellion and accommodation and perfection. See, even I can remember with acronym.
That's great.
But please, I would love to know examples and all that.
Sure. No, I'm really glad you asked about it, and it's very appropriate because the quiz just launched on my website yesterday, so it's finally ready. We had some glitches earlier, as these things go. So, traps. Here's the deal. What we're talking about in the book is how to bust through these points that are going to derail what we had hoped to do for our healthy choice. And it turns out that at these decision points, certain things fly into our heads, and they often have to do with socialization and how we've been taught in our past experiences. So the first trap is temptation. It's the T. And temptation refers to, just feeling this very strong pull towards something tempting that is not on your eating plan, or the couch instead of getting outside on what should be a spring day and taking a walk in the snow. And we're used to thinking about these things as having power over us. It's actually not the couch that's tempting us. It's our past memories and experiences with them. And I believe that is a really empowering piece of knowledge to have when you're at those points. So that's temptation. And then rebellion is when we feel this innate desire to say, screw you to the eating plan we decided we were going to follow, or that our doctor told us to follow, or that, when we initiate a change because I should and we feel pressured, and this is this innate reaction. And there's research to explain that humans are motivated to rebel against things that take away our sense of freedom. Then there's accommodation, and this goes deep. This is when we consistently, not sometimes, this is when we consistently put our own self-care needs behind the needs of other people and projects in our lives just because we feel they're more valuable. So an example of this could be someone is at a party and they've been following a new eating plan for a few weeks and they feel fantastic. They're not even drawn, or there is no temptation staring them down when the dessert is laid out in front of them. But their friend, who made a very special cake, comes up and offers this person a special piece of it. This person doesn't want the cake, but because they feel like they need to please the other person or make sure that person feels special, they just throw their own plans to the wind. Again, all or nothing. And so that's what accommodation is, and part of the book is to help people learn new strategies for all of the parts of for all the traps, so that it isn't all or nothing in these cases. There's lots of options instead of eating the whole piece of cake. They could eat part of the cake. They could split the cake. They could praise the cake maker's ability to make cake, but let them know that they're following there's a new diet. There's so many different ways to deal with this.
You give us so many great examples in the book.
Oh, good. And the final trap, which might be the biggest of all, and not only might it be the biggest of all, it makes all the other ones much worse, and that's perfection. And that is just the epitome of needing to do it right or not at all. The all or nothing thinking, the all or nothing dragon that sets the stage for feeling like failures if we can't do it perfectly. And so the antidote to that, to perfection, is the perfect imperfect option. And that's kind of when we get into the solution part of the book and people get an opportunity to learn about their three primary executive functions and the decision tool that they can use in the moment to help them solve these choice points when they arise. Ooh, I think I said too much.
No, it was perfect, and gosh, the book is so, I was learning page by page just new techniques and new ways to handle these situations that we all see all the time. So I'm going to take advantage of having a world-class behavioral expert with us. When I'm in the office and I am seeing a 55-year-old man who unfortunately is carrying extra weight, he's pre-diabetic, he's hypertensive, and he still can use his knees, but he doesn't really, he wants to get out and exercise, but he just needs to do it. He hasn't gotten around to it. We have a lot of doctors that'll be watching this. What approach should we be using with this gentleman?
Well, it's really important. What happens with a lot of people is that before they even get started, when they're in the office, they come in with a conception of what good or right exercise or walking looks like. And so the first thing I would want to do is assess what is their viewpoint of what good enough walking or exercise is. I want to tell you a very quick anecdote about something related to this that I think really says it all. So after No Sweat came out, a friend came up to me and told me that she had been visiting her uncle who was going through chemotherapy, and he mentioned to her that his physician had asked him to start walking. It would help with the nausea. And she said, "So, what are you doing? Are you walking?" He said, "No, all I can do is walk around the block." So a chemo patient does not think that walking around the block is sufficient. And so that's what we need to understand. We need to understand people's beliefs about what counts. There used to be criterion in terms of how long someone needed to be active for it to quote unquote count. And those criterion have been removed. And so we need to help people understand that something is better than nothing, and give people permission to step out their door and walk 2 houses and then come back. And then ask them to ask themselves, how did that feel? And you may not have any kind of euphoria from that, but you can notice, gee, that wasn't so hard. I did it. That's a sense of accomplishment. So I tell people, my clients, we need to give people permission to go back to exercise kindergarten and finger paint and experiment and play to figure out what's going to work for you. There's no rules. That's really what we have to get patients to understand.
I love the finger paint analogy. And Michelle brought up No Sweat. That is a wonderful book from 2015, Michelle's first book. Joy choices are second. Okay, this one would be personal. So if me or anyone, really, you have a long day at work, which a lot of us can have, you know it's important to have movement and be active. You weren't able to do it before work. You weren't able to go for a walk at lunch. You get home, it's 7 o'clock, the couch is calling, and you think, I probably should get some rest. Which is more important? Is it to get the adequate 7, 8, 9 hours sleep, or is it to get that 30, 45 minutes of walking or running or biking?
So while the first answer is it's always going to depend. It's going to depend on the individual's needs. I am personally someone whose sleep is paramount. But your question assumes that it has to be 30 or 45 minutes. And under those circumstances where you have to choose, oftentimes something is better than nothing because it keeps you consistent. It reinforces the value of it. So maybe instead of thinking it's got to be 35 or 40, you just say, you know what? I need to get to bed early tonight, but I'm going to do something. I'm going to walk. I'm going to go and climb the stairs of my house if the weather's bad or if it's dark outside, or I'm going to invite my family or my partner or spouse to walk outside for 5 minutes. The reality is that movement is such an essential part of being human when we can shift it outside of what is really now an outdated definition of what exercise or physical activity has to look like to be worth doing into our daily lives, into taking one step after another. It's so fundamental to who we are. We will be able to help more people learn to embrace, learn to understand the true value of bodily movement, and to want to have it more in their lives. If it's not a should, then we can make it something that helps us feel our best every day.
So good. You talk a lot about flexibility, and that's really, to me, the overarching premise of the book is how do we adapt. And there was a great example you gave where you walked to your friend's house, probably one of these, and you asked her just to go for a walk. First of all, I just love that you just walked up and knocked on her door to go for a walk. That's fantastic.
Like how we grew up, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Just
like we grew up. And I'll let you take it from here. I think it's a great anecdote.
So I went up to her door and I said, hey, do you want to go for a walk? And she's like, oh, I was just about to do my yoga. And so I started to walk away and walk down her sidewalk. And then she yelled out, hey, Michelle, wait up, I'm coming with you. And I said, what, Sherry, what happened? I thought you were going to do your yoga. And she said, today, Michelle, you are going to be my yoga. So she recognized that we didn't get to see each other very often, and that walking, there's no reason why she couldn't walk instead of do her yoga. This is called activity substitution in the academic literature, and we know that the more that people are able to substitute what they think when an opportunity arises, either because they deem it more valuable, like Sherry decided she wanted to spend time with her friend me, or because it's unworkable under the circumstances. That's what the joy choice is. It's activity substitution. It's the perfect imperfect option that you might choose or that you might need to choose to make something happen.
I love that you mentioned earlier elementary, and there's so many things coming at us that in this book, in this coffee shop style conversation with a friend, is the way I see it. You just hold our hand through the whole thing. There's pictures too, which is kind of nice. And it's so great. There's another great, really important acronym in the book that you alluded to earlier, POP. And I'm gonna hand this one to you.
Okay, so we can let life burst our bubble, which is what all or nothing thinking does, or we can take ownership at the point of disruption or the choice point, and we can pop our plan, because this assumes that we do have some type of plan that we're hoping to follow, whether it's an immediate exercise class, a walk outside, a certain way of eating. And so we pop our plan, and POP is the acronym that stands for pause, because I didn't make up the wisdom of pause. It's been around for thousands and thousands of years. Pausing creates a space where we can assess where we are, we can name our traps, which neuroscientist Dan Siegel shows that we can tame the reaction and make it more proactive and wise. So we can name our traps and tame them. And in the pause, then we can harness our attention to move on to the next step, which is open up our options and play. So I was supposed to go on a walk with a friend after work at 5, but I got a phone call that made me have to stay at work longer and finish. I couldn't meet my friend at 5 to take that 60-minute walk after work. What are my options? So I have to open it up. Well, I can think about walking for 15 minutes when I get home. I can push back dinner to do that, or maybe I go down in the basement after dinner and I decide to do 30 minutes on the elliptical, or I wasn't planning to do any formal movement tomorrow, so how about if I do a 45-minute walk at lunch? Maybe my friend can join me. The options are limitless, and so that's why the second part of POP is open up our options and play. And we're playing with them because this is very creative. And there's no high stakes. There's no failure. All we're doing is trying to find a workable option. And the third part of POP, the second P, is pick the joy choice. The perfect imperfect option that lets you do something instead of nothing and stay on the path of lasting change. You know, if you think about how we're walking now, I might take a step, a big step or a small step, you take a step. As long as we're going forward, we're on the path. So that's really what it's all about.
I love it. I couldn't agree more. In the book, you also talk about Dr. Judson Brewer at Brown and mindful eating. Do you mind? I know my daughter who's filming. I'm very grateful. She's walking backwards through all this. Tells me I eat way too fast, and I do. What advice can you give on mindful eating?
Well, you know, first of all, I think eating is a much more complex behavior than physical activity because there's so many choice points throughout the day. So emotions are involved and availability and context and so many things. But when it comes to mindful eating, the first thing is you have to have the intention. Like you have to know, I would like to eat more mindfully. And, you know, I'm into reminders. So, you know, maybe put a sticky note right next to the place where you're sitting to remind yourself. Maybe as a family, say, hey, can we try to spend 1 minute or 5 minutes eating this much food, and then let's talk about what we notice. I mean, it's going a little bit into kind of a formal, something you would do in a meditation retreat, but it's like anything. If you're trying to do something new, you have to try it and then see how it feels and what you noticed. And like most things too, doing it just once probably isn't enough to decide if it's right for you or not. So that's how I guess I would get started.
So you are a world-class behavioral coach on eating. Are you willing to tell me your favorite ice cream place? Is it an okay question to ask you?
Oh, yes. And, you know, moderation is where it's at. So in Ann Arbor, my favorite ice cream places, I have two. One is Washtenaw Dairy, which is a great, really established classic ice cream place in Ann Arbor. They also have really great donuts. And Slate, which is a newer place that opened up downtown. You know, I really do think for most people, you know, nothing is ever true for everyone. So some people this probably wouldn't work for, but moderation is a way to not have tension around food. The problem is that people have trouble taking a more moderate approach to eating things like ice cream because they feel that there are rules and shoulds and should nots, and what happens is that we react out of those, and they often drive us to the very thing we think we're not supposed to eat, when in fact if we just said, what's the big deal? I'm gonna have a little ice cream, the tension around it can go away. And again, there are some people who have certain conditions where that might not be okay, but I think to a great extent, a lot of the population, we've been socialized in a culture that has told us to ignore our bodies and to do things the right way, and that set of rules just sets most people up to fail.
I cannot wait for my patients to read this book. I cannot wait for our incredible physician leaders at Walk with a Doc to read this book. My best guess is to go to your website, michellesegar.com.
Yes.
Awesome. And you also mentioned a quiz earlier, trap quiz. We can find it there?
Yes, you can find it there. It's free, and it gives people insight into which of the traps they're most plagued by so that they can get awareness into that, and that is really the most important first step for moving forward on lasting change.
Cool. And we were talking off camera earlier. You said that there was a special opportunity if today is March 26th and the book comes out in about a month.
Exactly a month.
Exactly a month. So there's an opportunity to meet with you online about this.
So for people who pre-order the book before by, let's see, my publisher's been very specific about this, April 25th, 11:59 p.m., then they are invited to participate in a 4-session live book club with me, and it will be recorded if people can't make it. But and the book club participants are going to get a special workbook created for this book club. So it's an opportunity for me and anyone who's really excited about this material to just dive deeper together into it for 4 sessions.
That is a really great opportunity, and gosh, I really am. This book is a game changer, just like No Sweat was, and you know, so many incredible people that commented on the book and how much they loved it, and it's such an honor to be here with you in Ann Arbor and get to walk around this lovely neighborhood. Thank you for carving out time on a Saturday with your family to be with us.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be with you and your daughter too on a Saturday. I've been a big fan of yours for many years, your advocacy and your vision. So thank you for your interest in chatting about my new book.
Everyone, go find this wonderful book, Joy Choice, by Dr. Michelle Segar. I promise you will be glad you did.